All right, welcome back. This is another video on SoundBridge. In this video, I'm going to go over the very basics of audio editing in SoundBridge. I'm going to cover how to move audio clips around in the sequencer, how to duplicate them, how to split them, how to do fades and crossfades. We'll even take a look at how to reverse audio clips and a little bit about time stretching. And in the process, I will cover some of the basic controls and keyboard shortcuts in SoundBridge. So to get started, I've already laid out 2 clips that I'm going to work on to demonstrate audio editing. And the first one I used from the included content that comes with SoundBridge. I've used this loop, which is called Lin 100. If you listen to it in the browser here, it sounds like this. And then I use this bass loop from my loop collection. It sounds like this. Just a reminder to zoom in and out. I hold down Command. I think you'd hold down Control if you're on a PC, and then scroll the mouse wheel, or use a 2-finger gesture on the trackpad. So now I want to go over a few things in the transport area that are important for audio editing. Down in this section here, the key ones here are snap and loop. To turn snap on and off, you use the S keyboard shortcut, just directly S on and off. And to turn loop, which is the looped playback on and off, it's the keyboard shortcut L. And then the tools that we'll be using are this one, which is the select tool. And you can see from that tooltip that it's Q. And then this is the cut tool, which is the keyboard shortcut L. So these are conveniently located on your left hand on the keyboard. So you've got Q and X. And those are pretty important to remember because we will need to switch those back and forth, as well as turning snap on and off. And there is even a way that you can kind of get your ring finger on the Q, your middle finger on the S, and your index finger on the X, and then switch tools, snap on and off, and then you can get really quick at this editing. One of the reasons to use SoundBridge is that it has a very simple feature set. And so by having some creative constraint, there isn't a lot of messing around in here. We can learn pretty much what you need to do in here pretty quickly. It's just not that complicated. The other thing we can do is set the snap resolution. I'm going to set this to quarter notes for the time being. To move any of these clips, and I want to clarify that a clip is called a block in the correct terminology. If you look at the documentation for SoundBridge, it's always called a block, but I call it a clip. And you can see that right now I can drag from the body of this clip and move it freely along the timeline. That's because snap is not turned on. Now if I hit S to turn snap on, then it will snap along to the grid increment like that. And if we had the grid set to a finer increment, like say 1/8, then you'll see that it snaps along to 1/8 note increments. On the clip, these handles, this does a fade. So that's a fade in. And then on the other end, we can do a fade out on that clip. Now that works better with snap off, so I'll turn snap off. And you can see that you've got control over that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit by holding down Command and then scrolling to expand this a little bit. You'll see some other things about fading is that as you fade in, then you can grab this and adjust the shape of that fade. So that's how you fade in, out, and adjust the shape of that fade. Now there is a little trick. If you right click on this, you can create an S-shaped fade, which I really like. So you just right click on this dot and you get that S-shaped fade. In the middle, you can grab this to do the clip gain. So that adds or subtracts gain. Now, if you look down in the lower section, there is an editor view, and whatever kind of block you have selected, these controls and this view will be a little bit different. But for audio, it looks like this. You'll see there is a gain slider down here. There's also fade in and fade out adjustments here, as well as this. You can click here to adjust the shape of those fades. So that is another way to get fine control of those. Now, one thing you might encounter is, why are these dots so big and maybe on your screen they're not? The answer to that is because this program started in a touch-friendly design. I think that these dots needed to be bigger to put your finger on if you're using this with a touch screen. But if you hold down Option, which would be Alt on a PC, and just drag up and down over this area here, basically over an audio clip, you can adjust the size of those dots up to the maximum size or down to the smaller size. And it works the same way down here in the editor. You can make those dots bigger or smaller. For the sake of this video, it's kind of nice to have them big. The other thing you can do is adjust the length of the clips, resize, or what you might call trimming, by grabbing the handle at the end. So if you get to the edge, here's on the left edge, and then drag, you can see you can adjust the size. This is very, very helpful for editing if you wanted to really focus in on a certain aspect of a clip. Same thing here. A lot of times if we wanted to take something and adjust the tail of that clip, then that's how you do that. You grab that edge. Now there is a preference for this to get this kind of handle you can have on here optionally. And like all the preferences, you hit P, then go to Sequencer, and then Show Block Note Resize Arrows. If you turn this on and press OK, then you get these kind of arrows. And that gives you something to, I guess, tug on more easily. Again, that's a more touch-friendly element. You'll see that theme is also here if you wanted to adjust the size between the edit window and the main sequencer. You grab this arrow and you adjust that here. You've also got those here for zooming in and zooming out by clicking. So these are pretty big targets because they're touch-friendly. Now on a Mac like I'm on here, we're not going to do that, but it's important to, I think, to know that those things exist, and that's kind of where those came from. So you'll see these little arrows all over the user interface. All right, so the next thing that we can do is duplicate these clips, and that is using the keyboard shortcut Command D, and it will just basically duplicate it end to end. Very, very useful. You'll see that the second one winds up being selected. If we wanted to select two of them, then you start from some space outside of the clips and just drag this kind of marquee box to where it's touching what you want selected, and then release that, and now both clips are selected. Now, one reason that you might want to select them like that is to set the playback loop, which you can see up here at the top, over your selection, and you do that with Command L. When I hit Command L, then it adjusts the right marker and the left marker to where they match the selection. I'll do that again, Command L. And then that way, when you do looped playback, it will loop over that section. Undo, like most programs, works the same way. I'm going to select this first clip and just point out that duplicate also appears down here in some of the basic actions that you've got on the right end of the transport. You have these actions, and when you hover over them, it gives you the tooltip about what will cause that to happen or how it's programmed. These things can be, the actual keyboard shortcuts can be edited. You can also loop that clip, and then that is down in this editor view. If the editor view happens to be closed at the time, you just double click on the clip, and then it will open that. And then down here you'll see there is a loop option. And now if I turn that on, then when I start to drag the edge, it is going to just loop that. So it's basically repeating that over and over again until you stop pulling that out. And I think you'd find a similar feature in many other digital audio workstations. I'll hit Command Z to undo that Command Z again will undo that looping. You alternatively can just duplicate it with Command D, and it will basically duplicate the entire clip. Now you can stretch this clip out. Like right now it's 1 bar long, but if you wanted to time stretch it so that it is 2 bars long, then over in the track area you can set the time stretching algorithm. I always set this to advanced. You can also turn tempo stretching on and off. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but this is where you turn that on and off. But I'll put tempo stretching on, double click this, and then I do need to zoom out a little bit down in the editor view, and you'll see that you can time stretch using this handle right here. That allows you to time stretch that entire thing, or compress it, or do whatever you want with it. In some programs you can do that up in the sequencer view, but in SoundBridge you just go down in the editor and all your time stretching tools are here. There's more time stretching, warping kinds of things we can do, which I'm not going to cover in this video, but it's related to these dots and this view. So when it's time stretched out, that might sound pretty bad, but let's hear it. I'll undo that right now so we can move on to the next thing, which is how to split the clip. This is the cut tool, is the official name in it, and it's just simply the keyboard shortcut X selects that, and you can see that now I've got this scissors and a little kind of guide marker here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can also zoom in with the plus key. It's snapping to the grid, so I'll just turn the grid off, and then you can come in here and put in cuts if you want. Switch back to the select tool with Q, and then you can just click or select a piece that you might want to take out, and then hit the delete button, and it will take out a piece. So with those simple tools, I'm going to undo all of that. You can easily chop up, rearrange, do pretty much any editing that you need to do. Before I get into more of a sample of that, I'm going to show you how crossfading works. I'm going to put a split in here and then kind of crossfade this note to this note as an example. So we'll hit X, put a split right here, go back with Q to the select tool, and then I'm going to drag these two together. This is a little confusing, but it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it, is that when you go up to the top edge here, you get the crossfade tool. And so you grab this handle and then you can pull that crossfade across. From here, you can push this up or down to adjust the crossfade, or you can right click this to get the S-shaped crossfade. So if you've been wondering, and you can also adjust it here, with these two handles, that's how you set up your crossfade in SoundBridge. If you click outside of that area, then it just selects the clip, but if you select into the crossfade, you'll get these handles. Now, one more thing we can do with a clip is reverse it, and the reverse is also down here in the editor area, and it's this sign here is reverse. So if I click that, it will make the entire thing backwards. That's kind of really kind of weird, but sounds kind of interesting. So let's use these tools and do a little bit of arranging on this bass part. So we can, let me just listen to this. All right, so what I'm going to do is put a little split right about here. So we'll go X, select the split tool. I'll just throw this up over here because I might need to use some of that. All right, so let's make that kind of go bump, 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 bump. we'll grab this, fade it out a little bit and see how that sounds. So let's do that again. I'll copy it with Command D. And then what else have we got here in this one? I'm going to solo this a second. Now, if I want to position the playhead so it starts at a different spot, I can just drag it where I want it to start. All right, so I've got an idea. I'm going to duplicate this again. And we'll just shorten this up. Grab another one of these. Now, so if I want to do a drag copy, this works like a lot of programs. You hold down Command, which would be Control if you're on a PC, and then Release Command. So basically you're doing a command drag in order to drop that into place. We'll put Snap back on so I can pop it in here. I'll do Command L to set the loop over the whole thing. And we'll do this again. Command D to duplicate it. Put one here. And then we need it to do something else. Let's see if we can do something with making it backwards. I'm going to drag it over here and extend it. I'm going to make this go backwards and then see what we can use of this to make kind of like a little musical fill. What I'm going to do in this case is just try something where I chop it up. So I've got this set on eighths. I'm going to leave it there and then start chopping it on the grid. And then see if there's ways I can leave these notes out. Now there is another tool, which is this mute tool. Let's just try muting every other one of these slices. Maybe this one. I want, well, we'll just see what happens. Mute is a keyboard shortcut Z. All right, I think I'll go with that. I'm zooming out using the mouse wheel. I do have a macro setup that just basically does the plus and minus a bunch of times, like this, which I think is kind of helpful. If you're interested in seeing more about that, let me know in the comments and I'll do a video on that at another time. So I'm going to duplicate this section by just selecting everything with a selection like that. And then we'll do Command D to duplicate it. I'll do Command A. This is like many other programs that will select all the clips, and then Command L to put the loop over everything. Now, here is another thing that it took me a while to figure out on here. If you are starting in the middle and now you basically want to just send the playhead to 0, a return to 0 function, the way you do that is by hitting the stop button here. And you'll see that no matter where the playhead is, if you hit stop, it will go back. Now, if you just hit play and hit stop, it will basically pause it, but if you hit stop the second time, the playhead will go back to the beginning. If you want to put that on a keyboard shortcut, then go into Preferences, Shortcuts, and then if you find the section here for the transport right here, you'll see there is a stop option. By default, this is not set to anything. I have it set to 0. On an extended keypad, that's right at the bottom corner, and so that makes it very convenient to hit that stop. I also have play set to enter on the keypad. 0 for stop, I find it helpful. That way, if I see that the cursor is hanging out here somewhere, I can just always hit 0. So there are more topics related to audio editing, but these are the basics in SoundBridge. The additional topics have to do with time stretching, warping within the clip, and then also merging clips together. And just as a preview for merging, which we'll cover later, if you make a selection across a bunch of chopped up pieces like this and then hit merge, then it will kind of connect them all together. The cool thing is, even though they're connected together, when you go into the editor view, you'll see that all the individual clips are still available to edit, move around, warp, or whatever. So that's a very nice feature. Once you've done that merge, then this turns into unmerge, and you can turn that off. Really handy if you've got a bunch of little chopped up beats and you want to keep them, kind of use them as one piece. And we'll get into more uses of that in another video, along with how warping works. I hope you found this walkthrough to be helpful, and I'll be back with another SoundBridge video very soon. Thanks for watching.